Hello and welcome back to Radio 2. So the last couple of lessons we've been looking at music compiling in all the different facets, everything that goes into it. And today what we will be doing is we're going to recap the last 4 lessons and make sure that you understood everything that we spoke about from start to finish, okay? Start to finish meaning from music formats, the different types of music formats, to how the playlisting schedule was put together for a radio station, how a station decides on what music it should be playing, depending on its audience group with their age. We'll relook at Geiger's 8 steps. We'll look at the different types of format clocks, briefly mention again what a specialist music show is and why it exists, and then just how to submit your music. The previous class, we ended off with me asking you, what is the difference between an AC radio station and a CHR radio station, and giving me an example of each. So what's the difference between an AC radio station and a CHR station? Adult contemporary stations, okay, AC, can also be referred to as middle-of-the-road stations. These are the stations that are targeted at people over the age of 30, and they play a mixture of contemporary hits from the past decade or two. These stations usually avoid cutting-edge music unless it fits with the rhythmic sounds that match those of the decades on which they're focusing. AC stations are in the business of providing the music that their audience enjoys, and they must therefore keep a close eye on the trends with their demographic groups, as well as the trends within the music industry. They need to balance new popular songs with classics that their audience will remember and enjoy. If the music is too old, the listeners might feel disconnected from the station. And the same thing can happen if the music is too new and perhaps not yet popular with their listenership. When discussing their choice of music, AC stations use terms such as variety and mix to describe the selection and presentation of tracks they playlist to create a well-rounded, familiar, but not too retro sound. If these stations are programmed effectively, they can be highly successful. If we look at the Gauteng share of audience in 2019 with regards to AC stations, the top 8 out of 10 are all AC, albeit different types of AC. So Metro FM, for instance, is a hot urban AC, hot urban and adult contemporary. Khosi FM is language-specific adult contemporary. Same with Lesedi. 947 is a hot adult contemporary radio station. Kai FM is a soft urban adult contemporary radio station. Jacaranda is a soft adult contemporary radio station. Tubela FM is a language-specific AC station. And Motsweding is a language-specific AC station. Josie FM is a soft urban adult contemporary station. So what's the differences? The differences with all the differences between all these AC formats that I've mentioned. So hot AC would be a slightly younger target audience than the traditional AC format. The music is new and more cutting edge. It's kind of like a hybrid between pop and AC music. And they concentrate almost exclusively on the current hits and music from the past 12 months, coupled with small golden oldies like gold category or older category that usually comes from the last decade or two. Okay, so that's hot AC, aka 947. Metro FM also, but urban hot music. Soft AC is known for playing what's called beautiful music. So easy listening, lots of ballads. It's music that's popular with the 35 and upwards crowd, where the regular AC format plays music that's popular with their listenership. The age differences can be rather broad, as the group is not as clearly defined as in the soft adult contemporary format. Like here, music can include from the 1960s upwards. So a lot of love songs, and again, like I said, ballads. Overall, lower tempo music. What's CHR then? Contemporary hit radio was also referred to as the top 40 format. So traditionally, they play the biggest hits, the largest selling songs at the time. So this format will play new cutting edge music, current hits, and popular hits over the last 12 months. So it's a fairly narrow assortment of songs designed to draw in teens and young adults. This is a youth station. And within South Africa, there's only one real CHR radio station, and that is 5FM. This is an exceptionally difficult format to program for, as it doesn't describe to any specific kind of genre of music. Instead, the format is meant to reflect the popular content at the time. So this leads to a very diverse and an often very confusing sound. Under CHR, you also get different types. So you get urban CHR, dance CHR, alternative CHR, language-specific CHR, and alternative dance CHR. So that's AC and CHR, okay? What I want you to do at the end of this lesson, though, is to listen to 2 hours of commercial South African radio stations. I want you to list all the songs that you hear in the order that you heard them by artist and song title. Here you can use Shazam to help you with the titles and the artists. And then I want you to attempt to figure out how many categories this station has. Okay, try to place each song heard in a category. Then try to create a rotational clock as on page 177. So moving along. We just spoke about this in detail. CHR 5FM. Core audience between 25 and 34. P2 there, 15 to 21, 35 to 49. Urban CHR, so contemporary hit radio that plays urban music, YFM. We have no dance CHR, no alternative CHR, alternative dance CHR. We also don't have anything like that in South Africa. Also no language-specific CHR stations. So the 2 youth stations, 5FM, YFM. To mention, campus radio stations, all of them are CHR. Adult contemporary radio stations in South Africa, Metro, KFM, Heart, Smile FM, 947, East Coast Radio, OFM, Gagazi, and most African language public broadcast services. AC varieties, hot, modern, soft, language-specific, and urban ACs. Contemporary hit radio. CHR has a lot less songs than AC does. Why? Because the youth haven't had such a long life yet, so they don't have to. So you don't have to go so far back to make up 30 years of listening to music listening for them. So CHR, all the current hits, okay, current bestsellers, reliance on some golden oldies, but still popular songs, and some reliance on recent hits with a lower on-air exposure. And they have a small catalog, between 350 and 500 songs, okay? So not big. AC, aimed at an older audience from 35 upwards, softer than contemporary hits, heavy reliance on golden oldies and recurrence, larger catalog, between 500 and 2,000 songs. Urban format, so R&B, rap, hip-hop, dance, jazz fusion, gospel, inspirational, amapiano. So this kind of station will either lean towards playing music for adults or for teens. When it comes to playlisting, So we have all our genres now, okay? When we know what type of radio station we want to be, who we want to cater for, next we can start looking at playlisting. So now we need to compile our songs. There's a lot of different types of music scheduling systems out there. The three most well-known and most widely used music scheduling applications are Selector, Music Master, and PowerGold. Selector from RCS. Music Master is a German music scheduling program. And then there's PowerGold, which was released in 1988. What do these scheduling systems do? They are used to sequence music at radio stations. So music programs are driven through electronic data, through tracks that are made for specific slots or programming in the clock. And there are specific scheduling rules. So the kind of data that we place into these kind of scheduling systems are things like the song title, the artist of the song's duration, the length of the intro. So you literally listen to the intro and you earmark it. The texture of a song. This is how melodic, how rhythmic, how harmonic the composition of the song is. So in essence, the overall quality of the song in terms of the quality of the song and how many layers of music there is in the song. The tempo, so how fast or how slow the song is with regards to beats per minute, as well as whether the song features a male or a female vocalist and whether it's instrumental if the radio station accepts instrumental songs. Some tracks can be labeled as good hour starters. It could be labeled as ballads. They might have scheduling restrictions, limiting them to only be played in certain day parts or in certain hours or not back to back. It'll also contain the copyright details with regards to accurate reporting for the collection societies, so for SAMRO. With regards to track for specific slots in the programming clock, these are required for music slots for each hour of the week. So if we have a specific block programming slot, so if we have block programming over the weekend, here you would have a specific category to say that it's going to be in this show with this style or this era of music that would only be acceptable within these time parts. Then you have scheduling rules which you implement. So they would instruct the scheduling system to avoid playing two songs by the same artist in the same hour or back to back. Avoid playing two ballad singers back to back. Specify a minimum repetition of songs or a maximum times a song can play within a 24-hour time frame. Avoid playing songs with swear words in it during the day, things like that. With regards to knowing what type of music your listeners would like, obviously by now we know whether it's an AC or CHR, what kind of a radio station we have, but we still need to sit with the audience because you might be the same age, because different listeners might be the same age, but it doesn't mean they listen to the same types of music. Music tastes are neurologically programmed around the age from 15 to 21. So if you're not 21 yet, yours is still being programmed, in which time one begins to form an identity of the self, for instance, the sense of who you are. This is part of the reason why people still love the music that they listen to during that period of their time. So if we use the same year, so 2016 as a benchmark, we are now sitting in 2021. So if you have a CHR radio station and your core audience is between 20 and 24, you have to regularly clean your music database in order to remain relevant to your target audience as defined by your station's strategy. Let's briefly look at Thomas Geiger's 9-point theory. So number one, analyze the radio market and the station. Every playlisting exercise needs to start with an in-depth analysis of the target market and the audience's needs. Number 2, review the music library and their categories. So if the station isn't new, it's important to look at the current library and their available categories in order to get a feel for what's currently happening. Number 3, use image rotation categories. So use music categories to rotate and position jingles, sweepers, and promos within fixed positions on the clock. Define the exact music that the station should be playing. So start by defining your top end of your market. So if the top end of your market is 45, you'd never go back more than 35 years in music history. So the age of your oldest target listener, 45, minus 10 years, equals the number of years that you will go back. So the answer here, 35, which means if we look at for today, that answer would be 1986. So therefore, if we had a station, so an AC station with their top end of their market being 45, we will cut off the music at 1986. If we do the same exercise for a CHR station, their oldest listener being 35 minus 10 gives you 25 years, brings us to music from 1996, meaning we won't go back further than 1996 for a CHR station. Play mass appeal songs only. Okay, so once you've established your borders, it's important to create a list of songs that reflect these era borders. The most popular songs of those eras need to be considered, okay? So the biggest songs of those years is what you will be playlisting. And here you do an auditorium music test to help you gauge the appeal, particularly in recalling the memory of certain tracks and to create a library or category of music that the station will play. Number 5, limit the number of categories. So you'll definitely have an A playlist, which will have your high rotation songs on it, aka primary currents, aka biggest hits or songs on their way up. Then you have your B rotation, which is your lower rotation. Might be new songs on their way up, or could be big hits. Then you have your B rotation, which is your either lower rotation, so new music, because with brand new music, it could go one of 2 ways. Either they're on their way up, meaning from B rotation, they'll go to A, aka top 40, or they're on their way down, meaning they'll go straight to recurrence or straight off the playlist next. And then you have recurrence, so best former hits or songs that were in the top 40, but not necessarily number 1. So that's your recurrent rotation R. Then you might have, then here it can differ. You might have an oldies section where you have your 10 oldest years, or you might have the best local songs. So a playlist with purely local. Then you might have an older locals playlist like local classics there. So let's say L2. So let's call that L1 and L2. You might have an international. So the international classics would then just be your oldies version. So you can do whatever you want with it, okay? But the idea is that you don't have too many categories. And then obviously you need a station imaging category. And these are the categories that you use to form a basic clock. For instance, a fast repeating basic category sequence where you have a top of the hour and a bottom of the hour, okay? Or 1 week you'll do the one, the second week you'll do the others. So point number 6 of Geiger's theory is fill in the music categories. So now we have the categories. We know all the categories we're going to be playing. We know what kind of station we have. We know what type of era music we can use. Now you fill these categories, and that's done through your auditorium music test and any mandatory split that needs to be applied, for example, between your local or your international music. In this specific, okay. And then you want to whittle it down to anything between 250 and 500 songs for CHR and between 500 and 2,000 for AC. So these categories are applicable to any radio station. You just change the question. So what is the format, the production, the radio edit? Is the track's language and length edited? Is it suitable for radio? Is the track well produced? Does the track offer a catchy chorus? Familiarity, does the track offer a familiar sound? Is it accessible to most, if not all, of the demographics? Is or was there international traction? And could this song or this artist be the next big hit? Number 7, then you design your basic format clock, which I just mentioned. So this clock will play a new or hot local song first, then a current rotation song, then imaging, then an older classic, then a local classic, then imaging, then a recurrent song, then a local classic, imaging, international classic, secondary, current, etc., etc. Number 8, use format clock spin-offs. For every other hour, Geiger used an alternative version of this format clock variety. So for the first hour, he might have used the left side that says top of the hour. For the second hour, he might have used bottom of the hour. Or the left side he would have used for the first half an hour, bottom for the second half of the hour. At some point, you might have switched them around to do bottom of the hour first and then top of the hour second. So he would rotate these two format clocks within different week grids. As you can hear, this can become quite complicated, which is why we use the scheduling systems from RCS or PowerGold or whatever it might be. And then lastly, you set up the rules in the scheduling system. We've already spoken about the rules. And the rules can apply to different programs, different hours, different day parts, different days of the weeks. Avoidance of playing one song in the same day part until it's been played in other times of the day. Quota requirements, so local quotas. Avoiding to play two songs by the same artist in the same hour, etc. Again. Most radio stations today tend to narrowcast, not broadcast, even though we still speak about broadcasting. Narrowcasting simply means that a broadcast is aimed at a narrowly defined area or audience. So we know exactly who it is that we are talking to. So we are increasing the target market listener base. There will always be periods where your listeners will not be available. Okay, even with the most targeted programming and consistent reach, there will be times that you won't have those listeners. And this is the primary reason we have specialist programming. Okay, specialist features, specialist music shows. They are aimed at your P2 and your P3 listener. Each of these shows' programming is different and tailored to the audience likely to be listening at that time. There's a formula for specialist programming, and it is as follows. Potential listeners during the low listener time on the station minus your current listenership equals your potential targeted programming. Talk radio stations run talk shows and segments throughout the entire week, with the change in programming on the weekends, switching to lighter best-of shows and sport and lifestyle and music shows. Weekend talk is normally lower as the lifestyle of the weekday listeners are more relaxed on their weekends. Generally, there are two types of specialist shows: block programming shows, show programming. Block programming and show programming. Block programming occurs over the weekends, focusing on specialty music programming. So we block out a certain time where there will be specialist music shows. Show programming are compiled by specialists in different genres, 60s genres, 70s, African music, soul music. The idea here is that the show ensures that their presenters are recognized experts in their field. So whoever does the show would be an expert in that specific category. In the same way, you get specialist features, where you have specialists You get specialist features. Let's say, for instance, The Money Show with Bruce Whitfield, the Ask a Man feature. When it comes to the specialty programming, though, it requires monitoring and tweaking because a music station can at any time turn around, change its formats, and then be direct competition for a talk radio station that does block programming on the weekends, meaning that these stations need to keep monitoring their listeners and keep tweaking these shows to stay current. Just some more examples. And then if you want to submit your music for any of these specialty shows or specialist music shows, or just for pure, or simply because you think that the music that you have created fits a specific format and specific radio station, all you do is you send your track through in MP3 format with a WAV link or a WAV download link, and you give them all your information. So you say how you give the information of the song duration, everyone featuring on the show, everyone featuring on the song. So from the artist, if there are more than one artist, if there's different writers and different producers, everyone has to be mentioned on there. You need to make sure there's not excessive strong language, no explicit language, that the tracks are female friendly, and that it's not more than 4 minutes. Okay, so you can also include a short biography. Make sure that your song is registered with SAMRO and that you send through artwork. This goes through to the music department, who takes in all the new music and who makes record of every single song they receive, from whom and when, whether it's playlisted or not. This helps to make sure that they stick to their station format, and also that there's no preferential treatment when it comes to music that's picked. And here, this is when the music manager or the music compiler with their team gets involved to listen to the new music that gets sent through. And then the songs can be optioned for playlisting, or they might be put on hold because it might just not be the correct time for playlisting, or it'll go into the category saying that they've decided not to playlist your song. So that's pretty much how it works then. Over the world, there are 4 major record labels known as the Big Four. That's EMI, Sony Music Entertainment, Universal Music, and Warner Music Group. They are also the 4 biggest in South Africa. But then we also have Gallo Records, which is quite big. They take on pop and traditional music artists. Then we have David Gresham Records. Then we have Super Black Tapes with their Deep House. We have Kalawa Jasmi with their Kwaito. And then there is Siakaka, known for Gqom music. Right, so that is music compiling in a nutshell, all right? You should know everything about music compiling now, from the types of formats that you get to working out the eras of music that you need per format, to looking at within each format the breakdown from urban to soft to hot, etc., to look at what type of music you should have. Then you should break down your different formats, your different categories that you need within your radio station formats. And then you need to start doing your auditorium music testing, and then you can start putting your music in there. Alternatively, as you get new music that is sent to you with all the correct submission criteria followed, you can playlist those and also put them where they belong. Or if you get music on a weekly basis from your record labels, you will know where to put them, what you can use, what you can't use. And then from here, you can now design a basic format clock for your radio station and then break it down into hours. You will also now be able to work on putting in block programming and show programming for your P2 listeners, for those times when you know that your P1 listener might not be listening, or simply to try and gather extra listeners. And that brings me to the end of this lecture. Okay, so we are now done with music compiling. So this brings us to the end of this lecture, which means we are now completely done with music compiling, and we are starting on a new module in the next lecture. So I'll see you then. Bye.